London, autumn 1817. The morning light in the Thornhill townhouse held no warmth. Catherine Thornhill stood by the window of the breakfast-room, her hands folded carefully before her. At 24, she had learned to make herself small, unobtrusive, a skill acquired over 3 years of living as a burden in her brother's house. "Still here, Catherine." Her sister-in-law's voice cut through the quiet. Margaret Thornhill swept into the room, her silk morning dress rustling with self-importance. "I thought perhaps you might have found the decency to visit the workhouse. At least there you would earn your keep." Kate said nothing. Words only made things worse. 24 years old. Margaret poured herself tea with deliberate slowness. "Your sisters married at 19 and 20, both to respectable men. But you refused Mr. Whitmore when you still had value." "Mr. Whitmore was cruel to his servants," Kate replied quietly. "And now you are cruel to your family." Margaret smiled over the rim of her cup. "Eating our food, occupying our space. Thomas is too kind to say it, but I am not. You are a millstone around our necks." The door opened. Thomas Thornhill, 5th Baron Thornhill, entered with the distracted air of a man perpetually overwhelmed by circumstances. He had been handsome once, before debt and drink had hollowed him. "Margaret, Catherine." He nodded to each. "I have news." Margaret set down her cup with interest. "Good news, I hope. Heaven knows we are due some." "I have arranged Catherine's marriage." The words fell like stones into still water. Kate felt something cold settle in her chest. She turned from the window slowly. "I beg your pardon." "Mr. James Hartley." Thomas would not meet her eyes. "A gentleman of commerce. He requires a wife. I require—" He gestured vaguely, encompassing the shabby furniture, the faded wallpaper, the weight of obligations that crushed him daily. "You sold her." Margaret's voice held not outrage but satisfaction. "How perfectly appropriate." "It is arranged." Thomas finally looked at Kate, and she saw something that might have been guilt or might have been relief. "You will meet him this afternoon. The marriage will take place within the week." Kate could have protested, could have wept or raged or begged, but she had learned the futility of such displays. She straightened her spine instead. "I understand," she said quietly. Margaret laughed, sharp and bright. Married to a tradesman, a nobody. How fitting for the girl who thought herself too good for Mr. Whitmore. Kate walked past them both, her head high, and climbed the stairs to her small room. She did not allow herself tears. She had learned that, too. That afternoon, a hired carriage took her to an address in Mayfair. Kate had expected something modest, perhaps above a shop. Instead, the building was elegant limestone, with a discreet brass plate. J. Hartley, Private Offices. A clerk led her upstairs to a spacious room lined with bookshelves. Papers covered a large desk, ledgers stood in neat stacks, and behind the desk sat a man in his shirt sleeves. He stood when she entered. Tall, dark-haired, perhaps 30. His face was angular, his eyes grey and direct. He wore no jacket, no cravat. He looked like a man interrupted in the middle of work. "Miss Thornhill." His voice was low, educated. "Thank you for coming." The clerk departed, closing the door. Kate remained standing. "Please sit." James Hartley gestured to a chair across from his desk. She sat, hands folded in her lap, waiting. He studied her for a moment, then returned to his own chair. "Your brother came to see me 3 days ago. He suggested a business arrangement." "Marriage is a business arrangement," Kate replied evenly. "Particularly mine." Something flickered in his expression. Not pity. Interest, perhaps. "I need a wife," he said with startling directness. I have avoided it for years, but certain matters require the appearance of domestic stability. Your brother needs funds. It is, as you say, a business arrangement. Why not choose someone who wants you? The question escaped before Kate could stop it. James leaned back in his chair. Because I prefer honesty to affection that will sour into resentment. Because I have learned that mercenary honesty is more reliable than romantic delusion. Kate felt something unexpected. Recognition. What are your terms? She asked. I have a home in Kent. You would be mistress of the household. You would want for nothing materially. In return, you will be my wife in name and in fact. Heat touched her cheeks at the implication, but she did not look away. And my family's debts? Paid in full upon our marriage. You must be very successful, Mr. Hartley. I am comfortable. Kate studied him. His hands ink-stained but elegant. His face lined with what looked like weariness rather than age. His eyes, which watched her with an intensity that should have been unsettling but somehow was not. I have one condition, she said quietly. He waited. Do not lie to me. Whatever else this marriage is, let it not be built on falsehoods. Something changed in his face. She could not name it, but it felt significant. I will not lie to you, Catherine. Kate, she corrected. Only my family calls me Catherine, and they have forfeited the privilege. The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. Kate, then. When? She asked. 3 days, special license. I see no reason to delay. Neither do I. She stood, and he rose as well. I have very little to bring with me. Bring yourself. That will be sufficient. It was not a romantic declaration, but standing in that office, surrounded by ledgers and the evidence of a man who worked with his own hands, Kate felt something she had not felt in 3 years. Hope. 3 days later, she became Mrs. James Hartley in a brief ceremony with only the required witnesses. No family attended. She wore a simple blue dress that had been her mother's. When James handed her into the carriage for the journey to Kent, his touch was gentle. They travelled in companionable silence as London gave way to countryside. Autumn painted the landscape in amber and rust. Kate watched through the window, aware of the man beside her. Her husband. The word still felt strange. Tell me about your home, she said finally. It is quiet. Private. The staff has been with me for years. He paused. I think you will find it comfortable. The carriage turned through gates, a long drive lined with ancient oaks, and then the house appeared. Kate felt her breath catch. It was vast, not merely large but grand, stone and windows and columned porticos. The kind of house that belonged to earls at minimum. Mr. Hartley, she said slowly, what exactly is your business? I will explain everything. He helped her down from the carriage. I promise you, Kate, no lies. The entrance hall was marble and magnificent. Servants lined up, more servants than Kate had seen outside a duke's home, and at their head, a grey-haired woman in black silk. Your gra... The woman stopped herself. Mrs. Hartley, welcome to Ashford Hall. Kate looked at James. He met her gaze steadily. Welcome home, he said quietly. But as Kate followed him inside, surrounded by luxury that no mere merchant could afford, a cold suspicion began to form in her mind. What kind of nobody possessed all this? The first week at Ashford Hall passed in a fog of adjustment. The house was a labyrinth of rooms, each more elegant than the last. Kate's chambers adjoined James's through a connecting door that remained closed. She explored cautiously, expecting at any moment to be told some space was forbidden. But the housekeeper, Mrs. Dawson, only smiled when Kate asked permission to enter the library. This is your home, Mrs. Hartley. Every room in it. The library was magnificent. 3 stories of books reached by a spiral staircase. Windows overlooked the gardens. Kate ran her fingers along the spines, reading titles in English and French and Latin. She found James there on the 5th morning, seated at a desk beneath a window. Papers surrounded him. He looked up when she entered. "I hope I am not disturbing you," Kate said. "Not at all." He set down his pen. "Please, stay. I was only reviewing estate reports." She moved closer, curious despite herself. "Estate reports. Tenant rents, crop yields, maintenance expenses." He gestured to the papers. "The business of keeping land productive." Kate found herself drawn to the desk. She could see numbers arranged in neat columns. "May I?" He looked surprised, but pushed the papers toward her. "If you wish." She studied the accounts, her mind engaging with figures she had not worked with in years. Before her father's death, she had helped him manage Thornhill's modest holdings. It had been one of the few times she felt useful. "Your drainage costs are high," she observed. "Have you considered investing in tile? Drainage? The initial expense would be significant, but over 5 years you would recoup it through increased yields." James stared at her. Kate felt heat rise to her face. "Forgive me. I should not presume—" "No." He stood abruptly. "No, you are absolutely right. I have been considering it, but I wanted more data." He came around the desk, bringing another sheaf of papers. "Look at these figures from the northern fields. What do you think?" For the next 3 hours they worked together. Kate forgot to be guarded. James forgot to maintain distance. They discussed drainage and crop rotation and the merits of various agricultural investments with the ease of long-time partners. At one point, they both reached for the same document. Their hands touched. Kate pulled back as if burned. The spell broke. "I should—" She stood quickly. "Mrs. Dawson will wonder where I am." "Kate." His voice stopped her at the door. "Thank you. For your insights." She nodded without turning and fled to her chambers. That night, lying in bed, Kate pressed her palms to her heated cheeks. She should not have enjoyed the afternoon so much, should not have felt such satisfaction in being heard, being valued for her mind. This was a business arrangement. Nothing more. But her treacherous heart was beginning to hope for something more. 2 weeks after the wedding, James requested her presence at dinner. Usually they ate separately, he in his study and she in her rooms. But tonight, Mrs. Dawson had prepared a proper meal in the dining room. Kate wore one of the dresses that had appeared in her wardrobe, finer than anything she had owned before. James stood when she entered, his eyes widening slightly. "You look lovely," he said. "Thank you." She took her seat, and servants brought course after course. The food was excellent, but Kate barely tasted it. She was too aware of James across the table. "Tell me about your family," he said finally. "Your parents." Kate set down her fork carefully. "My father was a good man. Weak, perhaps, but kind. He died when I was 20. My mother had passed 3 years before that." "I am sorry." "My brother inherited a title and debts. He married Margaret within 6 months. She—" Kate paused. "She made clear I was not welcome." "Yet you stayed. Where else would I go?" The bitterness surprised her. "My sisters were married. I had no prospects, no money. I tried to be useful, to be invisible, but Margaret saw me as competition for her daughter's inheritance." James's jaw tightened. "She treated you as a servant." "She treated me as less than a servant. Servants are paid." Silence fell. Then James spoke, his voice low. "I was engaged once." Kate looked up, startled. 8 years ago, Lady Beatrice Colworth, beautiful, accomplished, everything a gentleman could want." He stared at his wine. "She wanted my title. When she discovered I preferred managing estates to attending balls, that I actually worked with my hands, she ridiculed me, publicly, called me a disgrace to my position." "Your position?" Kate asked carefully. He waved a hand dismissively. My social standing. She ended the engagement in the middle of a ball, in front of everyone who mattered. Said she would not tie herself to a man who acted like a steward. Kate felt fury on his behalf. She was a fool. James looked at her then. Really looked at her. After that, I withdrew from society. I built my life around work, around things I could control. I told myself I preferred solitude. And now? Now I find myself married to a woman who discusses drainage systems over estate reports. His mouth curved. Who would have thought that would be what I wanted? Something warm unfurled in Kate's chest. Dangerous. Devastating. We are both refugees from society, she said softly. Both deemed insufficient. James raised his glass. To nobody's, then. Kate lifted hers. To nobody's. Their eyes held over the rims of their glasses. That night, James came to her room. He knocked softly on the connecting door. Kate opened it. They stood there, looking at each other in the lamplight. I do not want to force, he began. You are not forcing anything. Kate interrupted. Come in. He did. What followed was gentle, careful, infinitely tender. James touched her as if she were precious, as if she mattered. And when Kate fell asleep afterward, her head on his chest, she thought perhaps this marriage of convenience might become something more. Perhaps she might allow herself to hope. She woke to find James already gone, returned to his own chambers. On the pillow beside her lay a single rose from the garden. Kate dressed and went downstairs, drawn to the library. She wanted to see him, to understand what last night meant. But James was not there. The desk stood empty except for scattered papers. And one letter. Kate should not have looked, should not have touched it, but the handwriting on the outside was formal, official. His Grace, the Duke of Ashford. The world tilted. Kate sank into the chair, staring at the words, Duke, His Grace, not Mr. Hartley, common merchant, but one of the highest peers in the realm. Her hands shook as she set down the letter. Footsteps in the hall sent her rushing to the door. Mrs. Dawson appeared, carrying fresh linens. Mrs. Dawson? Kate's voice sounded strange to her own ears. Who is my husband? The older woman's face paled. Mrs. Hartley, the truth, please. You promised me no lies. Mrs. Dawson set down the linens slowly. He is James Hartley, 7th Duke of Ashford, one of the wealthiest men in England. The room spun. Kate gripped the doorframe. You knew, she whispered. All of you knew, except me. He wanted... But Kate was already moving, fury propelling her forward. She found James in his study, bent over more papers. Always more papers, always more lies. Kate. He stood, smiling. Good morning. I thought we might... Your Grace. She bit out the title like a curse. His face went still. When were you planning to tell me? Kate's voice shook. After another week, a month, perhaps you thought it amusing, watching me stumble through this house, ignorant as a child. Kate, let me explain. Explain what? That you lied? That you made me believe you were a merchant when you are a duke? That every moment of our marriage has been a farce? I did not lie about what matters. You lied about everything. The words tore from her. I asked you for one thing. One thing. No lies. And you have lied from the first moment. James moved toward her. I hid a title, not myself. Everything else was false. Kate backed away. The equal partnership, the working together, it was all pretense. You were amusing yourself with the poor relation who did not know better. That is not true. What else is a lie? This house that is far too grand? The servants who call me Mrs. Hartley but want to call me Your Grace? The man who came to my bed last night? Her voice broke. Was any of it real? All of it was real. James's voice turned desperate. Kate, I married you as myself, as James, not as the Duke. They are the same person. No. He shook his head fiercely. The Duke is a title society gave me. James is who I am. And James wanted you. Wants you. Kate felt tears threatening and hated herself for them. I want an annulment. No. The flat refusal shocked her. The marriage was consummated. James continued, his voice hard now. You are my wife, my Duchess. I am your prisoner. You are my choice. He stepped closer. Do you not understand? I have been the Duke of Ashford for 10 years. In all that time, every woman who looked at me saw only the title, saw wealth and position and power. You were the first person in 8 years who saw me, who talked to me about crop rotation and drainage as if I was simply a man. Because I thought you were simply a man. Kate shot back. You made sure I thought that. Yes. He did not deny it. Because I wanted one person in my life who was honest, who did not perform for a title, and you were that person, Kate. I was a fool. You were real. His hand lifted toward her face, then fell. You are real. That is why I married you. Kate looked at him, at the man she had begun to trust, begun to love, though she had not admitted it even to herself. I do not know who you are, she said quietly. Something broke in his expression. Kate turned and walked from the room. Behind her, she heard him say her name. Once? Broken. She did not turn back. In her chambers, Kate locked both doors. She sank onto the bed and finally allowed herself to cry. Not for the title or the wealth, but for the brief, bright hope that she might have found a partner, an equal, a lie. All of it, a lie. Outside her door sometime later she heard footsteps, James's voice, low and wrecked. Kate, please, let me explain. She closed her eyes and said nothing. I know I handled this badly. I know you feel betrayed. Long pause. But please believe me when I say I never intended to hurt you. I wanted to be seen. Just once. Kate pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle a sob. I will give you time, James said finally. But I will not give you an annulment. You are my wife, and I... His voice dropped to a whisper. I think I am falling in love with you. Silence. Then his footsteps retreated down the hall. Kate curled on her side, still wearing the dress he had admired at dinner, still smelling his scent on her skin from last night. She did not know how to forgive this, did not know if she could. But in the dark, quiet hours of night, she acknowledged one terrible truth. She loved him too, and that made the betrayal hurt even more. A week passed. Kate remained in her chambers, taking meals there, speaking to no one. Mrs. Dawson brought trays and worried looks. James did not try to force another conversation, but Kate knew he was there. She heard him outside her door sometimes, late at night, heard him start to speak, then stop, walk away. On the 8th day, Mrs. Dawson brought a letter with breakfast. This arrived for you, Your Grace. Kate flinched at the title, but took the letter. The handwriting was unfamiliar, elegant, feminine. She opened it. Dear Mrs. Hartley, what a delightful surprise to learn that dear Mr. Hartley has married. I hope you will forgive the presumption of this invitation, but I would be honored if you and your husband would join me for dinner at my London home this Friday evening. I so look forward to making your acquaintance. Your devoted friend, Lady Beatrice Colworth. Kate set down the letter with shaking hands. James's former betrothed, the woman who had publicly humiliated him. Mrs. Dawson had gone pale. Do not accept, please. It is a trap. What do you mean? Lady Beatrice is society's favourite gossip. If she has learned about the marriage, she will have learned the rest. She wants to humiliate you both. Kate stood and moved to her wardrobe. Then I will not give her the satisfaction. Mrs. Hartley, I have been humiliated by better people than Lady Beatrice Colworth. Kate pulled out her finest dress, the blue silk James had chosen for her. Tell His Grace I accept the invitation. We leave for London tomorrow. Mrs. Dawson looked as if she might argue, but something in Kate's face stopped her. She curtsied instead. As you wish, Your Grace. The journey to London was tense. James sat across from Kate in the carriage, not speaking. She studied him in the afternoon light. He looked tired, worn. She hardened her heart. They arrived at the Ashford townhouse in Mayfair. Servants scurried to prepare rooms. James finally spoke. Kate, you do not have to do this. Yes, I do. Lady Beatrice will try to hurt you. She can try. Kate met his eyes. I have survived worse than a spiteful woman's tongue. Something like pride flickered in his expression. I know you have. Friday evening arrived too quickly. Kate, dressed in the blue silk, her hair arranged simply. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger. A duchess, whether she wanted to be one or not. James knocked. She opened the door. He wore full evening dress. Black coat, white waistcoat, sapphire cravat pin. Every inch a duke. He took her breath away. You are beautiful, he said quietly. Thank you, Your Grace. He flinched at the formality. The carriage delivered them to an elegant townhouse in Grosvenor Square. Light spilled from windows. Laughter drifted out. A dozen guests filled the drawing room. Conversation stopped when they were announced. Mr. and Mrs. Hartley. Lady Beatrice Colworth swept forward. She was lovely, blonde and petite, and perfectly dressed. Her smile was all teeth. My dear Mrs. Hartley, how wonderful to finally meet you. Kate curtsied. Lady Beatrice, thank you for your invitation. Not at all, not at all. Lady Beatrice linked her arm through Kate's, drawing her away from James. Come, you must meet everyone. We are all dying to know more about you. The evening began innocuously enough. Dinner was served. Conversation flowed. But Kate felt the tension building, saw the speculative looks from other guests. Finally, over dessert, Lady Beatrice struck. Tell us, Mrs. Hartley, she said, her voice carrying through the sudden silence. How did you meet your husband? Through my brother, Kate replied steadily. How charming! And what was your impression of Mr. Hartley? He must have seemed quite... She paused delicately. Prosperous for a man of commerce? Several guests tittered. Kate felt James tense beside her. She kept her voice level. I found him to be honest, intelligent, and hard-working, qualities I value more than superficial charm. Lady Beatrice's eyes glittered. How practical of you. Though I suppose when one's family is in such unfortunate circumstances, practicality becomes necessary. The words were a slap. Kate's fingers tightened on her napkin. Lady Beatrice, James began, his voice dangerous. But Kate spoke over him. Indeed, I have learned that adversity reveals character, both in oneself and in others. She smiled pleasantly. It is a lesson I treasure. How philosophical. Lady Beatrice leaned forward. Tell me, were you very surprised when you learned who your husband truly is? The table held its collective breath. Kate felt the trap spring. There it was, the humiliation Lady Beatrice had planned all along. I imagine, Lady Beatrice continued, her voice dripping false sympathy. It must have been quite a shock to discover that your nobody husband is actually the Duke of Ashford, one of the wealthiest men in England. She turned to the other guests. Can you imagine? Poor dear probably thought she was marrying a clerk. Laughter rippled through the room. Not kind laughter. Kate sat very still. She could feel James beside her, coiled tight, ready to defend her. But she did not need defending. She set down her napkin and stood. Room quieted. "You are correct, Lady Beatrice," Kate said clearly. "I did not know my husband was a duke when I married him." Triumphant whispers. "I knew only that he was a man who treated me with respect, who valued my mind, who saw me as a person rather than a pawn in social games." Kate met Lady Beatrice's eyes. "I married James Hartley. Titles do not change character, though they certainly seem to corrupt it in some cases." Lady Beatrice's face flushed. "How dare you?" But James had stood. His voice cut through the room like a blade. "She dares because she is right." Every eye turned to him. "Lady Beatrice, you are correct about one thing. I am the Duke of Ashford." He looked around the table. "I have been for 10 years, and in those 10 years I learned that my title attracted liars and social climbers, people who wanted what I could give them, not who I was." His hand found Kate's. She startled but did not pull away. "So yes, I hid my identity. I married this extraordinary woman as James Hartley because I wanted someone who chose me. Not my wealth, not my position. Me." He turned to Kate, his eyes fierce. "You asked why I did not tell you. The truth? I was terrified. Terrified that if you knew, you would see me differently. That I would lose the one person who looked at me and saw simply a man." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "But I was wrong to keep it from you." His voice softened. "You deserved honesty. You deserved better than I gave you. And I am sorrier than I can say." Lady Beatrice tried to interject. "This is highly irregular. This is the truth." James continued, still looking at Kate. "I love you. I loved you when you discussed crop rotation in my library. I loved you when you challenged my investment strategies. I loved you when you stood in my office and agreed to marry a man you thought was beneath your station because you had no other choice." Kate's breath caught. "I chose you when you had nothing," James said. "Not because you needed rescuing, but because you were the strongest, most honest person I had ever met, and I wanted to spend my life with that person." The room was utterly silent. Kate looked at him, at this man who had lied to her, who had also given her respect, partnership, tenderness, who had paid her brother's debts without telling her, who had looked at her and seen not a burden, but a partner. "You hurt me," she whispered. "I know. I do not know if I can forgive you." "I know that too." His hand tightened on hers. "But I will spend the rest of my life trying to earn it." Kate looked at Lady Beatrice, whose triumph had curdled to fury, at the guests who watched avidly, at this room full of people who had made a game of others' pain. Then she looked back at James. "You are an idiot," she said clearly. He blinked. "You married a woman who is stubborn, suspicious, and difficult." Kate. "But I married a man who pretended to be ordinary when he was extraordinary, who gave me a library and asked my opinions, who touched me as if I were precious." Her voice dropped. "Who made me believe I might matter to someone." "You do matter," James said roughly. "You matter more than anything." Kate felt the last wall around her heart crack. Not crumble, but crack, enough for light to enter. "Take me home," she said quietly. Relief flooded his face. "Yes, of course." They walked past Lady Beatrice without another word, past the gawking guests, out into the night where their carriage waited. Inside, in the privacy of velvet and darkness, Kate finally spoke. "You paid my brother's debts, Mrs. Dawson told me." James nodded warily. "You did not have to. He did not deserve to hold you hostage. You should have told me." "I know." Kate studied his face in the lamplight that filtered through the windows. "Why did you really hide your identity?" He was quiet a long moment. Then, Because I wanted to be enough, just as I was. Without the title, without the wealth, I wanted someone to choose me. I did choose you, Kate said. That first day in your office, I chose the man who spoke to me honestly, who offered me partnership instead of charity. And now, his voice was careful, do you still choose me? Kate thought about the week she had spent locked in her room, the hurt, the betrayal, the fury. But she thought too about the afternoons in the library, the dinner where they had talked as equals, the night he had touched her with such gentleness. I am still angry, she said honestly. I know. I do not know if I fully trust you. I understand. But, she took a shaky breath, I think I am willing to try. Hope transformed his face. Kate, if you ever lie to me again, I will not. He caught her hands. I swear to you, no more secrets, no more half-truths, only honesty, even when it is difficult. Kate felt something ease in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the beginning of it. James Hartley, she said, you are the most impossible man I have ever met. James Hartley, 7th Duke of Ashford, he corrected with the ghost of a smile. If we are being honest. Despite herself, Kate laughed. That will take some adjustment. Take all the time you need. He lifted her hand to his lips. I am not going anywhere. The carriage rolled through London streets, carrying them home. That night, Kate stood at the window of her chambers at Ashford Hall. Behind her, the connecting door opened. James stood there, uncertain. May I? He asked. Kate held out her hand. He crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood together, looking out at the moonlit gardens. I received a letter from my sister-in-law today, Kate said. Margaret. She wants to re-establish familial bonds. She felt James tense. And? I told her I was far too occupied being a nobody duchess to entertain social climbers. A surprised laugh rumbled in his chest. You did not. I did. Kate turned in his arms. My brother sold me. My sister-in-law celebrated my departure. Now that they know who you are, suddenly they want to be family again. What do you want? Kate considered. I want to let them go. They are part of a life I no longer live. You are certain. I am certain that this, she gestured between them, is worth more than their belated approval. James cupped her face in his hands. I love you, Kate Hartley. Kate Hartley, Duchess of Ashford. She corrected with a small smile. If we're being honest, he echoed. I think, Kate took a breath, I think I am beginning to trust you again. Only beginning? You betrayed me. That does not heal overnight. I know. He pressed his forehead to hers. I will spend every day earning it back. That could take years. I have years. His voice was fierce. I have the rest of our lives. Kate kissed him then. Soft, tentative, a promise of what they might become. When they parted, she said, You gave me something no one else ever has. What? A choice. Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. You chose me when I had nothing, and now, knowing everything, I choose you too. James pulled her close, and Kate felt his heart beating against hers. My impossible, extraordinary Kate, he whispered. My impossible, extraordinary James. They stood there as moonlight painted the room silver. Two people who had been deemed insufficient by the world, who had found sufficiency in each other. Kate had married a nobody, and discovered he possessed the only thing that truly mattered, a heart that was entirely hers. Spring came to Ashford Hall. Kate stood in the library, their library now, James insisted, reviewing estate reports. The doors opened and James entered, carrying tea. He set it down, dropped a kiss on her hair with the casual intimacy of months together. "How are the northern fields?" he asked. "Excellent. The tile drainage is performing exactly as projected." Kate looked up at him. "We should see increased yields by autumn." "You were right, as usual." He perched on the edge of the desk, close enough to touch. "I received a letter from your brother today." Kate stiffened. "Oh?" "He wishes to visit, to apologize, he says." James watched her carefully. "What would you like me to tell him?" Kate set down her pen. She thought about the girl she had been 6 months ago, desperate, invisible, treated as less than nothing by the people who should have loved her. She thought about the woman she was now, valued, respected, loved. "Tell him no," she said quietly. "Not yet. Perhaps someday, but not yet." James smiled. "As you wish, Your Grace." She rolled her eyes at the formal address, but couldn't suppress her own smile. "You know I still hate that title. I know. That is why I love using it." He pulled her to her feet, into his arms. "Besides, you wear it rather well." "Only because you are beside me." He kissed her then, slow and deep. When they parted, Kate touched his face. "Do you know what I realized?" she asked. "What?" "I spent so many years being told I was not enough. Not young enough, not beautiful enough, not valuable enough." She looked into his grey eyes. "You never made me feel that way. Even when you were lying about your identity, you made me feel seen." "Because you are extraordinary, Kate. You always were. The world was simply too blind to notice." She kissed him again, pouring into it everything she felt. Gratitude, love, trust, slowly rebuilt. "I choose you," she whispered against his lips. "Every day I choose you." "And I choose you," he replied. "My wife, my Duchess, my Kate." They stood together in the sunlit library, surrounded by books and papers and the life they had built. Outside, Ashford Hall's gardens bloomed with new growth. Kate thought about the day she had walked into an office on Mayfair, expecting nothing but another humiliation. She could never have imagined this. This home, this partnership, this love. She had married a nobody, and he had given her everything that mattered, not wealth or titles or grand estates, though those had come with him, but something far more precious. He had given her a place where she belonged, where she was not just tolerated but treasured, where her mind was valued as much as her presence. He had given her herself. "What are you thinking?" James asked, studying her face. Kate smiled. "That I am rather glad I married you." "Rather glad?" He raised an eyebrow. "Such enthusiasm." "Very well." She laughed. "Exceedingly glad. Tremendously glad. So glad that I might kiss you again right here in this library." "Might you?" His arms tightened around her. "I do hope you will." She did. And outside the library doors, Mrs. Dawson smiled and quietly closed them, giving the Duke and Duchess of Ashford their privacy. For this was their story, not of a title or wealth, but of two people who had been broken by society's cruelty and made whole by each other's honesty, a nobody and a duchess, or perhaps simply Kate and James, two souls who had found home,